Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're really excited that you've decided to spend your afternoon with us. My name is Dr. JJ Rollinson. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Partnerships and Welfare Initiatives at Annenberg PetSpace. We are excited to bring you the first 2021 session of our ongoing PetSpace Wellness Workshops. This series is designed to directly help you strengthen the human-animal bond between you and your pets through the guidance of animal experts who will explore practical, everyday issues for pet parents. Today, we are welcoming Jessica Johnson of West Coast Grooming Academy and the Pawlor. We are proud partners of theirs, welcoming students and grooming appointments in our space to further educate and benefit our adoptable pets, also with grooming sessions as well. Today, she's going to be sharing useful advice for preparing your pet for their next groomer visit and what you can do to help them at home. We'll begin with a presentation from Jessica, and we'll have time for a Q&A session afterwards. So please, if you could hold your questions until then. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that we are currently offering on-site adoptions by appointment only. And we also have some great upcoming programs, including our mutt manners, nail trims, and toothbrushing workshop next month. I'll share more on that after the session. Please take a look at our website at annenbergpetspace.org for more details. Now, we are pleased to welcome Jessica Johnson, who is the Master Groomer and Behavior Specialist for West Coast Grooming Academy, where she is the co-owner and lead instructor. She is also West Coast Grooming Academy's resident canine and feline behavior specialist and cat grooming specialist. She currently holds the titles of Certified Feline Training and Behavior Specialist, Certified Advanced Feline Training Professional, and certified feline master groomer. It's a mouthful and it's impressive. She is only one of 280 CFMGs in the entire world. You may have also seen Jessica on such TV shows as My Cat from Hell, Shelter Me, and the All-American Dog Rescue Celebration. Please join me in welcoming Jessica Johnson. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the introduction, JJ.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here today.
So I've been working with animals for pretty much my entire life. I worked as a dog trainer for a long time, since 2004. I have my bachelor's degree in animal science, pre-veterinary, and I have a lot of experience with grooming dogs and cats. So I have a wealth of knowledge that I'm really excited to share with you guys today. So today, what I want to talk to you guys about is kind of what it's like in our world as groomers. What is it like behind the scenes, and how can we work together with you, the pet parents, to make sure that your pets have the best experience possible when they're at the grooming salon. So let's get started. Okay. So, like I said, a lot of people aren't familiar with be a groomer or even really get to see what's happening behind the scenes, but there's a lot of challenges that we face as groomers that I want to be very honest with you all about. So first off, we need your help. We struggle a lot behind the scenes with a lot of different things, and all those things at the end of the day, can either help your dog or, make it so that way their experience is not ideal. For pets, they often feel more like it's a trip to the dentist rather than a trip to the day spa. So we want to change that. We want to change that perception. So when they come in, they're excited, they're happy to be here, they're going to have a good time, and, they don't come out, with their tails tucked and, feeling sad. So a couple things to keep in mind is dogs who are not able to be handled well are dogs that will suffer throughout their life because we can't provide necessary care. So if your dog is, thrashing when we're trying to do their nails, their nails will become overgrown. If they're aggressive, we'll have a harder time working with them. And this goes beyond the grooming salon. If they're not able to be handled well by you, what could happen later in life if, the dog gets sick and you need to medicate it, but you can't touch their mouth or their face, or if they get injured and you need to change dressings, how can you do that if you can't touch their legs? So this information that I'm going to provide goes well beyond the salon doors, and these can help you provide better care for your pet at home as well. So One thing to keep in mind is that groomers are people too. We love pets. We would not be doing this if we didn't absolutely love what we do and love playing with animals all day. We really enjoy spending time with your pets, and we bond very closely with them as well. So, if we notice something's off with your pet, that's because we've taken the time, we've looked over every inch of their body, and we know your dog or your cat. But sadly, a lot of times the groomers get blamed for things that are not our fault or that we have no control over. We're working with animals and animals move. We can't really talk to them and tell them, hey, if you stand still, this will be done in just a second. We're not trying to hurt you. We want to help you. So we're working with things that are moving. We're working with tools that, are dangerous if they're not handled properly or if the dog is being difficult. So we're not trying to do anything wrong. We only want the best for your dog. And, common things that we hear a lot are, oh, the groomer hurt my dog. Oh, the groomer was lazy and didn't want to do this thing. Or the groomer is only recommending this service to overcharge me. Or the groomer charged me a fee and, they just want to do that to overcharge me. But that's not always the case. And, we'll kind of go into detail about some of those things as well. But we want to encourage you to work with us. We do everything we can to try to educate our pet parents on, why we do certain things that we do. And that's so that way we can work with you. Everything works a lot better when we're listened to and understood. We're not trying to overcharge anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody's pets. We only want the best for your pet. So let's get started. Let's talk about things that we can do to make that happen. Oops. So grooming is important. It's important for every dog, every cat, anything with fur can. But when the dogs or the cats are not brought in for grooming on a regular basis, it can have a negative effect on your pet. So, for example, the cats that are only brought in once a year, the dogs that wait very late in life to come in or only come to the groomer every so often, that could result in the visits becoming stressful. So, there's unfamiliar sights and there's noises and they're not familiar with this person who's touching them all over their body. This is a different experience. And, we don't that. We don't want the pet to feel stressed when they come to the grooming salon. We want them to enjoy being here. And the more often they come in, the more they get used to us, they start to learn how everything works, and they have a better time. Also, if they only come in rarely, then visits can be painful. When we have to remove really tight mats, that hurts. When we start trimming nails that are overgrown and have been causing them pain for a long time, then they start to associate things like nail trims and mat removal and touching of their legs and brushing with pain. So if they're only coming in when they're in pain and they're only feeling pain when we're doing necessary things to them, then they start to associate that with us and with grooming in general. So, but if they come in on a regular basis, then their nails are not overgrown. They're not having to deal with mats. They don't feel that pain when those necessary services are being done. So then they start to go, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. And then we start to see the dogs enjoy coming in a lot more. Also, animals that don't come in and get that grooming experience, each visit can be dangerous. It can be dangerous for us and for the dog. If they're not familiar with certain things, they can get really scared or, they can try to bite us or, hurt themselves by fighting and struggling and flailing and, injuries can happen. So the more often your pet comes in, the more they get used to things, the less is going to scare them to the point where they become overly fearful or aggressive. Also, lack of grooming can be life-threatening. This isn't something that's talked about as much as I would like to see it, but especially with long-coated dogs, curly-coated dogs, they need regular grooming. They need every grooming every 4 to 6 weeks. Otherwise, they start to get matted. And, matting leads to pelting. That's when all of the mats start to fuse together into a hard shell over the pet's body. And once we start taking off those pelts, the things that we find underneath the coat trapped against the skin would amaze you. We've seen foxtails stuck under there, sticks, rocks, parasites. When the moisture is trapped against the skin, then the skin layer starts to break down. We see infections. I see this more often in cats and dogs, but I see bruising. I see bruising and bald spots from when the hair has pulled from the follicle because the mat is so tight. And all of those things can really result in a lot of suffering and pain for your pet. And then if those skin wounds open up and we get an infection that goes septic, then your pet's life can be in danger. So we never want to see that happen with your pets. So let's prevent that. Let's work together and make sure that, you know, your pet comes in, we get to know each other, and we form a really strong bond. That way your pet benefits the most. Also, lastly, probably the least on the priority list as the other ones are, in comparison to the other ones, but infrequent visits can be more expensive. So if your dog only comes once or twice a year, then, you know, you could be looking at some pretty hefty fees to remove the matting. You could be looking at handling fees if we have to pull other groomers to help us work on your dog. Or you could be looking at veterinary costs because we find things underneath that require immediate veterinary attention and care. So it's a lot better to bring in your dog more frequently and have a lower bill than to let it all build up and only tackle it once or twice a year. So the matting is probably the biggest thing that we see that we are constantly talking with owners about. So I have an example here. This is a mat that we took, and the owner told us, I brush my dog all the time. So this looks like it's been brushed on the top. You know, you can brush it, it doesn't tangle, but on the underside, it is solid. There's no way to brush this out, not without causing very severe pain and suffering for the pet. And we just don't want to do that to your pet. It's very inhumane, and the kindest thing to do at that point is to shave it. So when you're brushing your pet, you really want to make sure you're brushing all the way down to the skin. So if you're not seeing, you know, nice pink skin there, then you're not brushing down deep enough. But what causes matting? What is a mat? So a mat is a tangle that has started to twist in on itself and starts twisting close against the skin. They are caused typically by areas of friction. So we see a lot of mats underneath where the collars lay, harnesses, and sweaters. So if your dog has a really long coat, we don't recommend leaving a sweater on all the time. If your dog does get cold and you do want them to wear a sweater, then talk to your groomer about a length that is manageable for the pet to prevent the hairs from rubbing together and causing those mats. Another thing we see that causes them is bathing at home. So if you have a poodle or a curly coated dog, a long hair dog, and you're bathing it at home and letting it air dry, that's creating the perfect storm for mats. The air drying and water actually tightens up the mats. So if you're going to bathe at home, make sure that you're drying your pet completely with a high velocity dryer, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and make sure that you're completely brushing out the pet as soon as you're done. If your dog has a really long coat, you want to make sure that you're brushing the coat all the way down to the skin about once a week. Also, it's not just long hair pets that can mat. Any pet that has hair can mat, except for probably your smooth and short coated dogs. So your little Chihuahua at home that's got hair about this big, probably not a concern for that dog. But anything longer than, I would say, about half an inch, it's going to keep growing, it's going to keep growing, and it's going to mat up if it's not taken care of. So if you're not able to be brushing your pet at home or bringing it to the groomer regularly, talk to your groomer about a length that is manageable for you. So just to kind of give you an idea, a lot of times when we first check in the dog for grooming, we can feel that there's some matting in there, but we can't get the true extent of how bad it is until we get in with the dryer. The dryer allows us to see every inch of your pet down to the skin. So just to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like, here's a doodle mix. This dog has some minor matting, I would say. You can see that when we're running the dryer over the coat, you see some clumps kind of blowing back and forth. So those are mats. Those are tangles that we can, relatively easily brush out, not without some pain though. And when the groomer talks to you about matting, a lot of times we have to charge fees for matting, and it can be hard for the owners to understand why we need to charge those fees. So I like to compare it to walking through a field. Is it easy for you to cross a field where the grass is about ankle high, or is it easier for you to walk through the Amazon desert? The Amazon jungle. The Amazon jungle will probably take you a lot longer because there's a lot of stuff in your way that you have to chop through and get through in order to pass by. Whereas the open field, you can just walk right through. So the matting fees are due to the amount of time it takes for us to get through all those tangles. It takes a lot of time, a lot of wear and tear on our tools. And with the grooming industry in general, time is money. So if my groomer is spending over an hour brushing your dog, that's one less dog that she can take for that day, and she's losing money. And that's not fair to the groomer. It's not our fault that the dog came in matted, but we want to help. So, try to be understanding if the groomer starts talking to you about matting fees and things like that. So this next video, another long hair dog. So this dog doesn't have as curly hair as our doodle friend, but this is also another example of matting. So you can see that the top of the coat looks pretty good. Doesn't look super matted until you hit it with the dryer. Then you can see that all the tangles are down at the skin level, which is a lot more painful and harder to get out. And then this next one is not a video, but this is a cat, as you can see, and it's a short hair cat. A lot of people don't realize this, but even short hair cats can get matted. And that's because cats are very greasy animals. They produce a lot of skin oils that coats the hair. And what happens is all that dead hair that's ready to shed out, it sticks to that grease. And when it sticks to the grease with the healthy hair, then we start to see clumps form. And if the clumps are removed, then they start to form into mats. So the best way to treat that is to keep your cat on a regular bathing schedule. Usually every 4 to 6 weeks is great for dogs and cats, but with cats especially, with a good clean bath, we can remove all that grease, which is the source of the matting to begin with. Remove the shed hair, remove all that grease, then you have a nice, beautiful, fluffy cat that will not mat up. That goes for long hair and short hair. So this is what's called a pelt. So when you have a pet that's really matted, all those mats can fuse together into a pelt, and this is what that looks like. So once we start shaving it off, it comes off in large pieces. I see this way more frequently in cats than I do dogs. Dog owners, they tend to tackle the problem a little bit earlier. Cats, they tend to hide more, and it looks fine on the top. That's the main thing I want to drive home to you guys, is even if the coat looks fine on top, when you touch it, you can feel that something's not quite right. So with this type of situation, the only way to get this off is to shave it. There is no brushing out a pelt. It's also very, very painful. As you can see on this cat, this is an example of what we find underneath. So we have bruising, we have some patches of hair loss. This looks like probably flea dirt as well. So a lot of surprises when we start removing mats on pets. But this type of thing, if it wasn't removed, this cat could have lost its life, and that's not a fun existence for this cat. Things like urine burn, scalding, skin wounds, all that sort of stuff can result from pelting. One thing that I do want to say though about grooming cats especially is cats are very sensitive, and the thing I've always appreciated about taking off pelts from cats like this is that they understand what's going on. Cats are way more understanding and receptive of what's happening around them than people give them credit for. And when I start taking off pelts and severe matting like this, I actually see the cats lean into the clippers. They understand I'm trying to help them. They'll roll over and show me where the next mat is that they want me to remove. So just from a groomer's point of view, it's very rewarding getting to free the cat from that type of a situation and helping them. So the cats understand, the dogs for the most part understand that we're trying to help, and that makes the whole experience a little less traumatizing for all of us, I think. So now that we've talked about what mats are and what can happen if they are not taken care of, how can we prevent this from becoming a problem to begin with? So first, if you can, try to avoid home bathing if possible. I know with COVID and, all the quarantines and stuff going on, it's been a really tough year. And, a lot of people have started trying to groom their own pets at home, which is awesome. And hopefully, that's kind of giving you a little insight to what our world is like. But fortunately, there are a lot of tools and tips that we can give you to kind of help you at home. So first thing, this picture over here of this little green machine, that's called a high velocity dryer. So that's what we use here in the salon to blow dry the coat straight and make sure that it's dry all the way to the skin. Your hand dryers that you use for your own hair are not generally the best choice when you're trying to dry your dog, mostly because it takes a really long time and they get hot. So you don't want to use anything with a heat setting on your pet because they can overheat. So we don't want that. So make sure that it's dried all the way down to the skin. Make sure it's dried completely. Any moisture that's left behind can start to cause matting. Then you want to make sure that you brush your dog thoroughly all the way to the skin. You can bathe it and let it air dry if you absolutely have no other alternative, but make sure that you're brushing your dog completely afterwards. Even armpits, groin, legs, everything, every inch that has fur should be brushed out. You want to make sure that you're removing your harnesses and sweaters when you're not using them. If your dog is really having a hard time with matting, you may need to remove the collar as well, but make sure that you have your microchip as your backup identification and that it's registered. Then you want to make sure that you're scheduling regular grooming appointments every 4 to 6 weeks. If you have a doodle or anything that is really prone to matting, make sure that your visits are every 2 to 4 weeks. And, I don't say that lightly. If you're going to have the coat pretty long, like we see a lot of our doodle owners preferring, then 2 to 4 weeks is definitely encouraged. No longer than 4 weeks though, because if you want that long, curly doodle look, make sure that you bring your dog in more frequently. Now, the cost for that type of a grooming schedule for a big doodle can get quite pricey, and $65 to $150 a visit. So we know that that's a big barrier between coming to the groomer more often. So I have a schedule that I recommend. So first visit you come, you want to get that length down, do a complete haircut. Then your next visit can be just a bath. And then 2 to 4 weeks later, 4 to 6 weeks, whichever your groomer is recommending, you can do just a tidy trim. So that's where we do just the face, feet, and tail. And then after that, you can come back for the complete haircut all over again. So that helps with the cost of the grooming, make sure that it's a bit more affordable. Also, with our grooming school, West Coast Grooming Academy, we offer 50% off student grooming packages. So if your dog is one of those dogs that's on the more expensive side of the spectrum, call us for a student grooming appointment. You'll get 50% off and you can keep your dog on that regular grooming schedule and everybody wins. Then let's talk about tools. So we have a bunch of different tools here that we like to recommend for keeping your curly and long coated dogs maintained in between grooms. First one is a slicker brush. That's this guy with these little spiky teeth here. If your dog is more on the tender-headed side, then you can get the ones that have the little rubber pins on the bottom, but just make sure that you're brushing all the way. When you're using this type of brush, you don't want to press too hard, otherwise you can cause the skin to get irritated, and brush no more than 5 times in the same spot. So keep it moving throughout the body, separate all those hairs out, make sure there's no clumps, and then you're ready for step 2, which is using your metal comb. So metal combs are great for helping you with detangling, but also making sure that it reaches all the way down to the skin. So use this all over your dog. You can start with the more spaced out end first, look for any large tangles, and then flip it around and use your finer spaced end to go through and look for smaller tangles. If you find any tangles, then you might need to step it up to your mat breakers and dematters. So these are the ones that look a little on the scary side, and you should use these with caution. Make sure that you've talked to your groomer about how to use these first, because one side is safe for you to touch, which is the side that should be going against the skin, but the other side is very sharp. This is what's going to be used to break apart and cut those mats out. So make sure that you're using it safely. So get some training on that before you use it. But those are the best tools that you can use to help tackle the mats. Just make sure that you're being really careful around sensitive areas that could get cut by this bad boy, like tongues and ears and things like that. So the next thing that we want to talk about is shedding. So if you have, your Huskies, your German Shepherds, your Corgis, your Labs, this is your chapter. So there's a lot of things that cause shedding. You have your typical seasonal sheds. As soon as the weather starts changing, a lot of those breeds will start blowing their coat. So you definitely want to get them in during those seasonal change times. Typically, if you want to keep it up during the year, we recommend every 6 to 12 weeks for Shepherds and Huskies and things like that, just to make sure that all the shedding is under control still, or you can do it more frequently. The once or twice a year, probably not enough, especially once your dog starts getting older. You want to start making sure that those nails are getting in check and they're not forming any clumps or things like that. Other things that can cause shedding, nutrition, that's a big one. The quality of the food that you're feeding is always reflected in their skin and coat. That's the largest organ of the body, so it's going to reflect any sort of nutrient issues first usually. So if you see that your dog is shedding a lot and they haven't been shedding before, then you might want to check out what food you're feeding and upgrade to a higher quality diet. Also, medical issues can cause a lot of shedding, things like ringworm, fleas, flea bite hypersensitivity, flea bite dermatitis, hormonal imbalances, thyroid issues, Cushing's disease. Also, different types of allergies can cause the hair to shed out more. Also, behavioral issues. So, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, the pet could be licking obsessively or pulling their hair out, and chronic stress. So if your pet is shedding a lot, talk to your groomers, see if they have any recommendations. Typically, I would recommend keeping them on a good schedule, feeding a good diet. If you've done all those things, then it might be time to start investigating a medical concern. But just to kind of show you what it's like for us when we're tackling all that shedding, we have a St. Bernard here, and it is snowing in our salon. This is pretty typical of any given day for us, but it's fun. We have really amazing products that we use to help loosen up all that dead undercoat. Our de-shed package, it has royal jelly in the shampoo to help break everything apart and condition the skin. It's amazing stuff. Life is too short. Do the de-shed. So other thing that kind of ties in with our matting is even Huskies and Shepherds and your double-coated dogs can mat. We call this having a packed coat. So all that hair that's shedding, if it's not removed, it sits there against the skin and then it starts to fuse together. So without removing the dead undercoat, the coat can become packed and then shaving might be the only option. So this is a Husky, doesn't look matted at all until you try to brush it. All that dead undercoat, it hasn't been removed in about a year, and this dog, there's no way to brush all that out without causing severe pain for the dog. At the end of the day, we want to do what's best for the dog, and if you're really hard set on having that coat saved, it can be done, but it's going to be expensive and it's going to be very painful. To do at the end of the day would be to just start fresh with a new coat and try to prevent it from happening again in the future. As groomers, we don't recommend shaving a double-coated dog. There's a lot of risks associated with shaving it. Some of the risks could be overheating. Contrary to popular belief, shaving your Husky will not help keep it cooler. It'll actually make it warmer. And that's because their coat works to protect them from the elements and from the sun and from getting hot. Also, shaving the double-coated dog could ruin the coat. The texture might change, the color might change. It can grow back in patchy. It may not grow back at all. And it can also cause irritation and some more OCD behaviors. So if we do end up having to shave your dog, it was not done without really weighing the pros and cons. And we want to make sure that your dog can help get its natural coat back in good condition. So things like dog safe sunscreen, wearing clothes can help protect them from the elements. You want to limit sun exposure, and you want to schedule them for a monthly de-shed and brush them weekly. That will help stimulate the hair follicles so all that hair comes back. Then we have behavior issues. This is probably the most serious thing that we see in the salon. When dogs come in with very severe behavior problems, it really limits the amount of care that we're able to give them. So, for example, if the dog is severely aggressive, we may not be able to do the groom at all. And that's for the dog's safety as well as ours. If we stress the pet too much, then we can run into complications, such as the dog passing out or, having heart complications. And we never want to push a pet to that point. So if we're telling you that, it's not safe to continue, or I'm sorry, we can't accept your dog, then there's a very good reason for it. It's not that, we don't want to groom your dog or that we're afraid of your dog. We're afraid for your dog. So just, try to understand that, if you have a dog that is showing aggression, it does limit the amount of services that we're able to do. So we may have to change the grooming plan. We may have to skip certain steps. We may have to modify the groom during the groom. But typically your groomer will let you know if there's any changes to the grooming plan while the groom is going on. Also, dogs that are very bitey. We have muzzles, we have e-collars, we have safety things, that we can use. But ultimately, if we have to come in and wrestle with your dog every time they come in for a groom, that's not very helpful for your dog. They're just learning that everything that they're feeling is justified. They're like, aha, I was right for feeling scared to be here. I was right for hating this place. So in the long term, it's better to work with your dog and, allow us to work with your dog as well instead of forcing it through every single time. And things like with dogs that are biting, you have to understand that we may not be able to trim the face to how you want. We might not be able to touch the face at all. We might not be able to do the nails or get them as short as you like. We may not be able to brush the teeth or clean the ears. So having a bitey situation does limit what we're able to do safely. So the bottom line is it's unrealistic to expect the groomer to continue doing something unsafe for things like vanity or just fun. At the end of the day, our hands are our livelihood. If we get a bite that is severe enough to end our careers, we can't feed our families, we can't pay our bills, and we have to change careers. And so we take, biting situations very seriously. Dogs that are really shy and fearful, if they're pushed too hard, they can start leading to aggression or biting. So we always want to make sure that we're keeping the dog below their threshold. And the threshold is the point where they go from handling it to not handling it anymore. So then we see dogs that start to fight and struggle and flail and flip out, and we call those flippy outy dogs. And actually, this is a good example of a dog that is on the flippy outy side. So you can see that the groomer's just holding the dog, and the dog is just going berserk. And we attempted to do the nails. It didn't happen. After this video was taken, we stopped everything and we asked the owner to come back and try to hold the dog for us while we did the nails. The owner saw how the dog was behaving, and we decided to call it a day. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. If the dog is, at this level of struggling and thrashing, it's not a safe situation. Dogs are like people. If I was to go to my doctor's office and start, going crazy, my doctor's not going to see me. Two, he's probably going to charge me a cancellation fee. But also I might hurt myself. So things like, stressing their muscles, muscle strains, things like that can happen if the dog's fighting too hard. The dog can bite their tongues. I've seen all kinds of crazy things happen. And that's just from the dog fighting, and it shouldn't be that way. So there are solutions that we can do. First, you want to start as early as possible. If you have a puppy at home, start getting them used to going to the groomers now. Also, you can find a trainer that can help you work with desensitizing the dog to certain things, or counter conditioning, which teaches them to like something that they may not like so much. And in severe cases, you may want to try calming aids or talk to your vet about different types of sedation. Sedation would really be the last resort, but if it's what's going to keep the pet and the groomer safe, then it's definitely a good option. So there he is again. So real quick, I just want to talk about services that the dogs tend to struggle with the most. First, nail trims. This is very common among terriers and poodles, Shih Tzus as well. There's something about those paws. They just do not like their feet being touched. And when it comes to the nails, they are just not having it. Same thing goes with paw pad shaving. That's where we shave the hair from their paws so they don't get dirty or mats in there, or just trimming. Also, when we start to try to shave their sanitary or do anything with their back end, some dogs don't like that. And then the drying. So we have a lot of different techniques that we can use to try to help the dogs get through these services, but it's better if we can prevent them from disliking them in the first place. So here's another video. This is a dog that has kind of a history of being difficult, and the groomer, he's handling him, on the gentle side, get that little booty shave going on, but the dog is just not having it. But this dog is still young. There's definitely time where we can work on this dog and get him to the point where he can handle that okay. So if you do have a dog that behaves like this for the groomer and you know it, they've told you about it, they've maybe even shown you videos, just know there is hope. There's a lot that you can do at home to help your dog get better for these types of services. So a lot of these things are easy to train, using your dog trainer, training classes, socializing your dog early, and working on different handling exercises. So I'm gonna pass it over to Katie, our PetSpace dog trainer, if she's ready for me, so she can talk to you a little bit about what counter conditioning and desensitization and all these fancy words mean.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Nice to be here. We are figuring out our little modified setup in my house here. This is Andrew here, my dog, and he's here to just kind of help show a couple of things that I would do to help prepare my dog for the groomer in general. But definitely, I know you were just mentioning, Jessica, how difficult nails can be, and that's a really, really big one. I do try to stress as much as possible to all of my clients and any adopters to do as much touching as possible with your dog. So what you mentioned before, desensitizing, with desensitizing, all it is just, make a point to pet your dog every day all over where, make sure that they're comfortable with it. If there's any place that they're really uncomfortable with, then you can do some of that counter conditioning where you bring in treats with that behavior, with that touching and petting. But if you don't have a dog that's concerned about it with you, you can start by just making sure that every day you pet them all over. You make sure that you touch their feet. He's not pulling away. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to touch his toes, touch him between his toes, touch his nails to get him used to that. He's pretty used to this. He's been doing this for a long time. And I'm also going to make sure that I look in his ears and I look at his teeth, and I'll even just kind of look in his eyes and touch all around here. And really, I've never had an issue putting eye meds or ear meds in him if ever he, gets an ear infection or something is going on, which is great because that can often be really, really difficult if something happens and you have to get in there. But most of the stuff that that I talk about to help dogs get prepared for the vet and the groomer is what we do at home. It's just getting them used to all of that stuff at home. Can you stand up for me? Good boy. I even will do some repositioning. I'll touch his tail and pull that out. Of course, I like to brush him myself as well as often as possible in between grooming visits so he gets used to that. But I also am going to touch all of those feet. And I do have a Dremel of my own here as well that I use for nail clipping. If you do something, or nail grinding, if you do something like this, make sure you take it really slow. You turn it on and turn it off and get them really used to it. All of those little intricate things that could potentially be triggers and could make it really difficult for your dog. Now, if you do notice that they're struggling with any one of these pieces, a lot of times when you touch a dog's paw, can you sit for me? A lot of times when you touch a dog's paw, they're not just going to sit there and give it to you like that. They might pull it away. So you could take some treats. I always have my handy dandy treats nearby. And go ahead and just gently take your dog's paw and then give them a treat. You can tell he also knows this routine. He's ready to go. And I do this anytime I notice that there's a place they might be a little uncomfortable with, where if I touch, they try to pull away, then I'll go ahead and bring out my treats and just practice lots and lots of little bit of touching and treats. And you know what? Less is more. Start small. The biggest thing that we usually make a mistake with, because we're human and we do that, is we just try to do too much. We sit there and make them go through an entire, I'm going to brush you all over and touch you and poke you and prod you, and now you get a cookie at the very end. And it's not enough, right? Because that was a lot that we asked for them to do. So we want to make sure to really just take it simple, or make it simple. Just pick up a paw, give a treat. Touch a toe, give a treat. See how they feel about their nails being touched individually. Give them a treat for each one of those. And if they're struggling, they actually need more treats more frequently and maybe even higher value. Maybe I'll pull out some hot dog whenever I'm going to do all of this desensitization and counter conditioning, because it can be really, really difficult. I mean, I don't really like going to the dentist or having to get shots, right? And so, when we're kids, we get a lollipop to help us feel better at the end. But that really is the same kind of concept, right? We want to make it a good experience. And I actually just recently had to take him to my vet, and my vet's like, gosh, he's so good, right? He's so great. He's so used to it. And it's not even that he's so great. I mean, that's wonderful for all the vets and groomers, right? When they have a good experience. But more than that, to me, I'm so happy that he's comfortable. He feels safe and he feels okay in that experience. And that's all from me doing that stuff at home. And also when I have the opportunity, when it's not COVID, I love to take my dogs for socialization trips to the vet's office and grooming.
Absolutely.
Good thing to do too. Yeah.
And we welcome that in our shop too. Like if it's somebody wants to say, hey, can you take my dog in and put him in the tub and give him a treat? I am all for it.
Yeah. I know, and you guys keep jars of treats in there for all the dogs. It's
Only
awesome.
the best. Wonderful. Another thing too that I wanted to recommend is when you're practicing holding your dog's feet and trying to get them prepped and ready for nail trims, your electric toothbrushes work really good for pretending it's a grinder.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Anything you can find at home that, you know, makes a noise or is unfamiliar, like you can grab a ladle from your kitchen and touch their paws with it. You know, then you can grab the kitchen remote or TV remote or whatever you have, you can use it, pretend it's a grinder or a nail clipper. Any unfamiliar things can be very helpful.
Absolutely. I actually spent the earlier part of today with my other dog who is very much not a fan of nail clipping, and we just were practicing with a pen. I would actually just have her give me her paw, and I would touch the metal of the pen to her nail, and then I use a clicker when I'm doing that kind of work, and I would click and then give her a treat. So she's learning to offer her paw and be okay with things touching. When it comes to all of that, and now she's talking to us as well.
A lot of opinions.
Ladies, can I jump in and say something really quick?
Yeah.
So a lot of times dogs that are a little older have developed a fear of nail trims if they've ever had their nails trimmed and they get quicked. So what that means is there's a part of the nail that has nerves and blood vessels, and then there's a dead part, just kind of like ours. And you often, yeah, Jessica's probably going to go into this, so I'm probably totally stealing her thunder, but I wanted to also say that from the training perspective, there might be some of that breakdown that you have to do to kind of develop trust again if they've ever had their nails cut too short. So, you know, that's something to talk about with your groomer, with Jessica, or even a trainer. If it's so bad that the dog is just panicking when you touch their nails, because they're, especially if they're black nails, if they're afraid that something is going to hurt, then you may want to just take it to the next level, talk to your groomer, talk to your trainer, and help them with that. There are some dogs, as speaking from veterinarian, that need sedation, and it is just because we don't know where those quicks are. Nobody can see them. And so partnering the three, the veterinarian, the trainer, the groomer, can all work together to kind of make sure that those dogs don't have to have a traumatic nail trimming experience.
And you know, that is actually part of the reason why my other one is really kind of so averse to having her nails trimmed. One of the early times, it was just a tiny little bit she got quicked, and after that she was very uncomfortable about it. And we just have to go really slow, you know, make it easy. And it's okay, you know, sometimes we think we get concerned about using meds, but if it makes the dog more comfortable and they can get through that process, that's really what's important.
Absolutely. And you know, I can't speak to what other salons are doing, but given the fact that we're a school, we try really hard to make sure that the next generation of groomers that are entering the field know what they're doing, and they know how to handle the dogs and deal with their stress signals and things like that. We actually teach in our online courses how to read dog behavior, so that way they can understand why the dog is, you know, behaving the way they are and things that they can do to help. So for example, you know, we use whatever we can at our disposal to try to make it a good experience for the pet. So we have calming sprays, you know, that help kind of just give the dog more of a peaceful feeling about being at the groomer. We have our high value treats that are sitting next to us, you know, within arm's reach in the salon. We even have this thing called a happy hoodie. This is something we can put on their ears to help drown out the noise from the dryers or the Dremel. So we really are trying to make sure that the next generation of groomers that are entering the field, that they're certified, that they know what they're doing, and they know how to work with even difficult pets on those types of issues. So always ask your groomer, you know, are you certified through West Coast? Because if they are, they had training from me and they know what they're doing. Selfish little plug in there. But another thing that you guys can work with the dogs at home and communicating with your groomer, most groomers are fine working with your dog and they don't mind doing it. They just need to know that that's the case. So for example, when you're bringing your dog to a new groomer, when you're on the phone making that appointment, say, hey, you know, this is the situation with my dog. Do you have any recommendations? A lot of times for us, the very first appointment, we have a little bit more time. So that's when we can spend the time working with the difficult dogs. If we know that, you know, there is some training that's going to be needed, we can block out enough time to make sure that we do that. So try to avoid scheduling on a really busy day, like say, hey, I have a dog that needs some nail trimming. Here's a bag of treats. Good luck to you. And it's a busy Saturday. There's not much training that's going to be, be able to happen that day. But if you say, hey, next week I have my dog coming in, he has a history with, nails. What do you recommend? The groomer will say, bring him in at the first appointment of the day. I'll block out an extra 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever they need. And, bring whatever your dog will walk through fire for. So if your dog loves Vienna sausages, bring those. If your dog loves chicken, bring that. I have a cat that works for Doritos. So if I need to desensitize her on something, I let her lick on a Dorito while I do, whatever she needs. But probably don't admit that to your vet. But also you want to keep your requests reasonable. Don't expect that the groomer is going to have all the time in the world to do a complete overhaul on a severe behavior problem. No, go in knowing that this could take many sessions, maybe weeks, months, even years to correct a severe problem. It's also not really your groomer's job to fix major traumas. You have to put in the work as well. I love talking to owners and getting permission to talk with their vets or their trainers. I'll say, hey, I got this client. What's the situation? Give me the rundown. What are you doing? What can we do? And having a team in your pet's care is awesome. So I love working with other people when it comes to those difficult cases. So, but just be very honest with your groomer. Tell them what the situation is. I actually have a lot easier of a time dealing with cat owners about this sort of thing, because they'll come in and they'll say, my cat's never been groomed. I tried it once. It was terrible. My cat's going to be the worst cat on the planet. Good luck to you, and then the cat turns out to be perfect. But a dog owner, they might say, oh, my dog's a perfect angel. And then we come to find out later that the dog has been kicked out of 4 other salons. So, if there's been a problem in the past, tell us. It keeps us safe, it keeps your pet safe, and it makes sure that we know how to work with your pet to provide the best experience for them. So next, this slide that I have here, this is an example of how we train a puppy in the salon. This was actually a PetSpace puppy. So here we are touching their paws and offering treats, and then showing them the tool that we're going to use while offering a treat. And then we can pet them with the tool and give a treat as well. So that way, by the time it comes to the actual nail trim, they're like, oh, this thing is easy. The cool thing about this training process that we used is it took about 30 seconds. Let me see here. My video is being a little weird. There we go. Guys, I'm a groomer, not a tech person.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you. I'm trying. Okay. Here we go. So this was a PetSpace puppy, and it was his very first groom. So we wanted him to be good for future nail trims because he was struggling a tiny bit in the beginning. So we touched his paws, offered him a treat. And he thinks this is the best game ever. And then here we are, we stepped it up a notch, showing him the tool while giving a treat and touching the paw. The tool is no longer scary. Now we're offering the treat and touching with the tool the area that we're going to work on. And this one, we are touching the paw and using the tool, and we actually trimmed a nail, and the puppy does not care at all. So this whole process, I kid you not, we probably spent 30 seconds to a minute working with this puppy. The amount of time it took you to watch these videos is how long it actually took us in real time. So this is awesome. Not all dogs are going to be this easy, but it is nice to see that, this is something that we can do in the salon. This is another dog. I don't know if you remember the dog from earlier who was not having very much fun with his tail being touched. But this dog also has issues with his feet being touched. So this is the dog before training. So the groomer is just trying to clean the hair from the paw pads, and he's not having it, struggling quite a bit. So after the appointment, we spoke with the owner about everything, and we said, hey, you know, this is what's going on. This is what we recommend doing at home. You know, just work on touching your dog's paws all the time. And the owner did what we said and came back for the next appointment. And this is the same dog a month later. So this is awesome. This is magic. Like when we see dogs come in and they've improved like this, we're just like, oh, amazing. Because this is a dog that, you know, if they get something stuck in their paw, they get a foxtail, we can take it out. You know, we don't have to sedate the dog just to take something out of their paw. You know, if they cut their paw, if, you know, if something happens, we can now take care of this paw. It doesn't have to become a bigger problem. So we can provide a lot better care, you know, after, which we love. So I love working with puppies. We've been getting a lot of puppies, you know, with the whole COVID quarantine thing going on. I know Katie will probably have some suggestions for this as well, but I always recommend start as early as humanly possible. So as soon as the vet clears your puppy for grooming, start now. Start working with your puppy, start touching them everywhere. I always say little kids make the best dog trainers because they love to hold those dogs and, you know, handle them all the time and be a little rough with them. But, you know, when we get dogs in that have been raised by kids, they are awesome. So touch your dogs everywhere, you know, really take advantage of those socialization periods. Let's see, Katie, did you have any comments on socialization periods at all?
I was muted. Hang on. Yeah, well, socialization periods are such an interesting thing. What most people don't realize is that socialization, although it is a very, very long process, primary socialization period ends around 12 weeks. We don't get a lot of time usually with our puppies that includes that primary socialization period. But one of the things that's really crucial is all of that touching stuff. It's one of the first things that I always suggest in puppy classes is all that stuff that I was talking about where, you know, your puppy loves to be touched and held. So make sure you touch them everywhere. Practice a little bit of restraint as well. So I like to do a little bit of, I'm going to just gently hold my dog and give them just a tiny bit of restraint. And then I use their release, which is all done, and get down. If your puppy has a problem with that, then you're going to want to make sure that you, once again, bring some positive stuff into the mix. But you want to be practicing all of those things. And if you do it early, they're like these little sponges where they just soak up all of that information and they really can handle so much and roll with the punches. So you want to try and do as much of that early as possible. It's important to make sure that you're not forcing it, right? You're doing it gently and you're making it positive. So it's not, I'm going to handle you because I can, but it's, this is a really positive experience that we're going to go through together.
Awesome. And Katie, you have training classes available, right? So that way people can start working with their dogs?
Yes, thank you, Jessica. In February, we are going to do a single class that is specifically on husbandry and handling skills, but even more specifically, nails and teeth, right? Teeth brushing and nail clipping. So we are going to focus on that and just some stuff that you can do at home. You know, it's not a grooming class, but it's a class about how to get your dog prepared for those experiences and just really comfortable being handled. And I can't tell you how many times I've had that completely, save me from a vet's visit because I've had several times where my dogs have gotten a bee stinger in their paw, right in between their toes, or foxtails, or different things that could potentially be really, really problematic. But because they were so comfortable with me handling them and, taking out the stinger or taking out those foxtails or whatever I needed to do, that it actually wasn't an issue and I was able to save them from any more hurt or discomfort that they could have experienced.
Wonderful. Another thing that, aside from taking your puppies to training as early as you can, is I also recommend crate training as well. Even if you don't intend on having a crate or using a crate very much in your home, I always recommend getting them used to the crate, because in the busy salon, we're usually working on several different dogs at a time. So there is a very good chance your dog will spend some time in a crate. Also, let's say there's a disaster and you need to evacuate and your dog has to be in a crate. You don't want their very first time to be in a crate to be a stressful situation. If they're already familiar with being in a crate, then it's not a big deal. Also, some dogs that are very difficult for drying, it could be unsafe for us to hand dry them. So we have no choice but to use a kennel dryer. And that's just so the dog has space to move around and they feel a bit more relaxed about the situation. But you don't want to wait till you need a crate to realize that you should have crate trained. So I always recommend at least getting them comfortable with it, as early as you can, so that way it's not seen as a bad thing. The crate should be a fun place, not a punishment. I'm sure Katie will agree with that.
Absolutely, right there with you. I always encourage crate training with any dog, but definitely with young dogs. And for exactly that reason, when they go to the groomer, they're probably going to spend a little bit of time in a crate-like environment, right? And the same thing when they go to the vet, or if they need to be boarded, or sometimes if they need to be transported. I transport my dogs in crates in the car because it's actually one of the safest ways to do it. And so they're very, very comfortable. It's their safe space. And you want to be able to give them that, especially when they go to a visit at the groomer or the vet.
Definitely. Another thing that I always recommend is, don't wait to start grooming, but you also want to make sure that your puppy has its vaccinations. JJ, I don't know when you recommend puppies get their vaccinations to the where they're allowed to get grooming, but we usually recommend at a minimum of having their second round of shots. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, ideally we'd want them to have their kennel cough or their Bordetella shots, since they're going to be going into a moist environment with a lot of animals, a lot of dogs. I think you can do some things at home to get them used to it first. Like you said, like you can do sponge baths or you can do some gentle stuff ahead of time. But really, ideally, we want the vaccines to be taken effect. So, if you have at least two sets, that'd be great. But ideally the full set would be good.
Definitely. So typically when it comes time for your puppy's first groom, make sure that your vaccinations are done, and you want to try to book the first appointment of the day. That's usually the quietest time in the shop. And we want to make sure that we have as pleasant of a time as possible, but we want to keep things short and sweet. We don't want to keep the puppy there for hours and hours and hours. We want them in and out, and we want them to have fun. So we like to kind of work them up slowly for a full groom. So for example, the first visit, we could do just a bath, in and out in an hour or less, nice and simple, lots of treats, make it a good, fun experience for the puppy. Then the next time they come in, maybe we'll do a tidy trim. We'll do a little bit of trimming around the face, maybe the feet and tail, clean them up a little bit, and then they're done. And then the third visit, we can try for the full groom. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to trim the hair on a puppy, but it's not easy. They're like little popcorns, just pop, pop, pop all over the table, and a lot of energy, a lot of wiggling and moving. But your expectations should be kind of manageable for your puppy's first couple grooms. They need to learn how to stand on the table, and they need to learn how to stand still. So we try to work with them so that way they learn what is expected of them when they're in the salon. So bear with us. It's a process. It's a training process for your puppy, so that way they have a lifetime of really positive, really good grooming experiences. Also, if there are particular treats that your puppy likes, make sure that your groomer gets a bunch of those, because we will probably go through the whole bag. We just want to make sure that they have a great time. Potty breaks are important too. Make sure they have a chance to go potty before and after the groom. Their bladders are very, very tiny, so we would hate to have to rebathe them, after they've already finished and had a great experience already. Also, please don't rush the groomer. It's a puppy, they move a lot, and we really want to make sure that we have a good time with them. So don't call us every 15 minutes, say, my puppy ready? Because then we have to put the puppy away, answer the phone, talk with you, then go back, take the puppy out, and we could have already been done. So just, let us do our thing when we have the first couple grooms, because we really want to make sure that we set your puppy up for success. And just as an example, here is a puppy for its first groom. Usually the drying is what scares them the most, but as you can see, this puppy doesn't care because we have toys. So we sanitize these after each use, but we have our little squeaky duck toys, which are very fun for them. And we have little, wind up jumpy toys that are great. So we really try to do whatever we can so that they have a good first time. And this puppy does not even care that it's being dried. So that's the perfect result. So we spent a lot of time talking about dogs and puppies. What about cats and kittens? So real quick, important thing to keep in mind with kittens is their socialization period is very short, very short. You only get about 3 to 7 weeks of age before everything starts to terrify them. They don't do well with new experiences and change after 7 weeks. But if you start socializing your kitten within that frame of time, you can push that about to 15 weeks from what I've seen in the salon. So if you get that kitten, you get some shots down and you start working with them, or you're even working with them at home and bucket baths. So have some really warm water, just bathe them really gently in the bucket, give them some treats. Usually meat paste works really good with cats. And just make sure that you're getting them that experience getting wet and getting dried. With kittens, young kittens, they don't regulate their body temperature very well. So you want to make sure that you thoroughly dry them. I usually do this with the hair dryer. And these little happy hoodies, they're wonderful for cats too. If you don't have one at home, we have cat and kitten size ones that you can just buy on Amazon. Just look for the little tennis wristband ones, and those fit kittens perfectly. Grooming sessions during this time should be weekly for a kitten, and that's to take as much advantage of that socialization time as humanly possible. And also, kittens are messy. If you've ever tried to wean a kitten, it is not pretty. They're swimming in their food. They are learning how to use the litter box. So you're going to thank me when your kittens are really good for bucket baths. Also, you want to start bringing your kitten in weekly at that point. We actually do kitten training sessions here. So the first visit, they'll come in and we'll just trim their nails and brush them. The next time we'll trim their nails, brush them, and maybe clean their ears and eyes. Next time we'll go for a full bath. And then the next time after that, we'll go for another full bath. And that way, they've had a couple times to come in, and we usually do some playtime with them, get some toys and treats out. And, it works really well with the cats. And then once you've been doing a month of the weekly visits, then you can do monthly after that. Usually 4 to 6 weeks is good for cats. And then this video is just an example of a cat that did the program with us. They started coming in as kittens. We worked on handling and training them. And as you can see, the bath is not a big deal. No big deal at all, which is wonderful. So this is just to give you an idea of what we do on our end. Your puppies and your kittens are safe. So when we're grooming and working with baby animals, we always want to be gentle with them, and we want to go slow. We don't want to push them to the point where they're stressed or going past their threshold of what they can tolerate. So we'll work with what they're allowing us to do. And we use a lot of distractions. Like I said, we have toys, we have games, we have a lot of things we can do. A lot of times with puppies, we'll just wait till they fall asleep to trim their face. It works great. But, at that age, they're very easy to distract and they're fun to work with. And, it works great for us. Also, we take our sanitation protocols very seriously. So when we know we have a puppy or kitten coming in, everything gets sanitized double time. So we sanitize all of our tables, our tools, the tubs, kennels, we sanitize everything. And we try to make it so that way your pet does not even touch the ground at all. So we'll carry puppies in, we'll carry kittens in, we'll keep them in their own carriers when we're with them. And that's our best way of keeping them safe. We also make sure to confirm the vaccination records of all the pets that come in the salon, not just the puppies and kittens, so that way they're safe, and we do not allow any interaction with any other dogs or cats while they're here. And most importantly, we want to have fun with them. So, if we take a little longer, it's probably because we were cuddling with your pet. But they like it, we like it. And, at the end of the day, this is kind of what we get. We get puppies falling asleep on our tables, because they're so relaxed. And that's our sign that we've done a good job. So we've talked a lot about the challenges that we face as groomers and things that you can do to help. But the most important thing is we want to partner with you. We want to work with you as an owner. We want to make sure that this is a partnership that'll last a lifetime. We want to be there from puppyhood all the way till the end with your pet, and we want to make we're helping you. Groomers often are the first to find something wrong with your pet. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen something abnormal on a pet that I've groomed, many times before, and alerted the owner, and come to find out it was an early sign of something serious that was easy to treat. So when you form that relationship with your groomer, it really pays off in big ways. So ways that we can work together, like I said, start early, do short sessions and build up to full grooms. Exercises at home, so touch their faces, their paws, work with them with brushes, electric toothbrushes, whatever you have at home, start touching them everywhere. And make sure that you're keeping up with your pet's coat at home in between grooms. So if you have, a doodle or a poodle or something that with a very high maintenance coat, make sure that you're managing it in between grooms. Also keep your pet on a regular schedule every 4 to 6 weeks, and listen to your groomer. If we're telling you, hey, this is what we noticed, this is what your pet is struggling with, here's some things you can try at home, don't just go, yeah, and not do it. Because we will know the next time your pet comes in that you didn't listen to us. So, but please, if we're telling you to put the work in, it's for a good reason. Also, you want to match your expectations to who your pet is as an individual. You might like one thing, but that thing is not a good fit for who your dog is. Let's say you have a dog that is very rough and tumble and, is an adventure dog, likes running in the beach and getting dirty. And you want, a coat that's this long and pristine and fluffy. That may not work for who your dog is. So you might need to work on accepting that your dog may do better with a shorter coat, that, you can take them to the beach and they dry a lot faster and they don't get matted, and, they don't come home with twigs stuck in their legs and things like that. So take a good look of who your dog is and what the groomer is recommending for your dog, so that way you can have the best of both worlds. Your dog can have the lifestyle that they like, and you can have a coat that's easy for you to manage. Also, not all pets are good candidates for every style. If you have a dog that's trying to bite us, trying to have a nice short shaved face may not be realistic or safe. If your dog is, getting older and you've always had this really amazing, intricate hairstyle, but your pet's coming home from the groomer and they're sore and it's taking them longer to bounce back, it may be time to talk to your groomer about a comfort groom instead, something that's a lot easier to keep clean at home and that doesn't require your dog to stand for so long. But as with anything, discuss any concerns that you have with your groomer. We are always here to help. At the end of the day, we only want what's best for your pet, and we are happy to spend the time talking with you and figuring out a plan that works well for everybody. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening. I know this was a lot of information, but bottom line is we want to help. We want to help you help your pet. And if you're interested in becoming a groomer and really seeing things from the inside, we do offer grooming classes at westcoastgroomingacademy.com. We have classes running all the time. Grooming is a really awesome, fun career. We love doing it. If we didn't love what we do, then we wouldn't be here. So yeah, does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was amazing. That was just so much great information. And Lucy says hi. I know that you are her groomer and she loves you. She says hello. So if let's open up to some questions. If we've got any questions, please put them in the chat and I will ask them of Jessica. I'm sorry we went over a little bit. We had so many good things to talk about and I had to butt in with my own opinions. But let's, and Katie, our trainer, is here as well too, so you can ask a question of all three of us. The first question we have is, do you offer grooming at Annenberg PetSpace?
Yes, we do. We do cats on Wednesdays. We call it Whisker Wednesdays. And we do dogs Wednesday through Sunday. So we have appointments with our certified groomer, Ashley. So if you want the professional to do the groom, we can have Ashley do the grooming. Or if you want the student grooming, we also do student grooming as well. The student grooming appointments are half price. They just may not look as great as Ashley's, and they may be a bit longer, but our students are always supervised by me or Ashley, and they do a really good job. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And we really value that partnership. And we have another question that's sort of more for Katie. Where can people find a trainer that might be used to doing a lot of counter conditioning and can help if they have a dog that hates being groomed and they don't feel that they can do work at home?
So the first place that I would recommend anyone check out is the CPDT website, which is the certification, the Council for Certification of Professional Dog Trainers. Ooh, mouthful. That is a program, or not a program, it's an organization that certifies trainers. So you have to actually go and take a very long test. You have to show that you have already been training and you know what you're doing. And it's a great way to just look for a trainer who you already know knows the science and has been certified, has made that effort to go through and get that certification. So that's the first place that I would recommend looking. Usually you can go to their website and look in your area for a trainer who could help you out with these things. Yeah, and then any trainer, you want to make sure any trainer
Excellent.
that you're using.
Thank you.
Sorry. I thought right at the end, you want to make sure any
No, it's okay.
that you are having come to your house, and all the CPDT trainers they're positive reinforcement based, because that's what science shows us is the best way to start with all these things. So make sure whatever trainer you decide on, they're using positive reinforcement based methods so that you make this experience really, really positive. One of the things I thought about as we were talking is sometimes we don't even realize the things that our dogs take as scary or uncomfortable. And so really small, little, subtle things that our dogs show us, we might not even see, but a professional trainer who knows what they're doing should be able to see those things and could maybe point you in the right direction.
Sounds great. I agree. And we put the CPDT website in the chat for anybody who's interested. Jessica, this is a very good question. We're getting a few questions about anal glands. Do you want to talk a little bit about them? I know that's probably an entire lecture in and of itself, but maybe some quick tips for owners on what they should do about anal glands and what they are, why we even have to express them.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of smaller dogs, they tend to struggle with having anal gland impactions. At the groomers, we're only allowed to do so much when it comes to anal glands. We can only express the external ones, and we don't prefer to force it. So if it's not coming out, pretty quickly, we don't want to sit there messing with it too much because we can injure the anal glands. If we've expressed the anal glands and the dog is still having problems, then there could be an issue with the internal anal glands, which I think JJ, that actually might be a better question for you. But generally the bigger dogs, they kind of handle it themselves pretty well.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, bigger dogs have, so let's back up just a little bit. So anal glands are two tiny little bean-shaped, I guess, glands that are right inside the rectum of dogs. They're at about 5 and 8 o'clock, right around the rectum. You can't even see it, but the opening is right where the rectum opens. Usually when dogs defecate, the anal glands express just by the pressure of the rectum opening. That's what happens with my dog. She's bigger, it's easy. I've never had to express her anal glands. For some reason, certain breeds and smaller dogs, the size of the fecal matter doesn't necessarily push the anal gland material out. And so it can sometimes stay in the glands longer and it gets dry and then it gets kind of thick. And then it's hard to express. And if that goes on for a long, long time, it can actually get impacted and they have to be expressed under sedation or with surgery, or there's a whole bunch of other things. So, as a vet, I always say to people, don't touch your dog's anal glands unless they tell you that they're bothering them. So, they don't have to be expressed every single time, but if the dog's scooting, they're licking back there, then you should get them checked out. Either the groomer can at least look from the outside and see, if they're obviously very full, and they can try to squeeze them from the outside. And if they express easily, great. But if they're scooting their butt on the ground all the time and they're really uncomfortable, then sometimes a vet might have to actually manually extract them from the inside, which some dogs handle okay, some dogs don't. But start with your groomer, and if your dog is starting to scoot or starting to lick back there a lot, they can at least do an external exam and then talk to your veterinarian about expressing them regularly.
Just remember,
Okay.
the groomer is not a replacement for the vet.
We are a team. We work together.
Exactly.
Okay. And then, so I know you kind of went over the, positive reinforcement for trying to get dogs to get, and cats really, but dogs to get used to having their paws touched. So there's a couple of questions about that. So I'm going to ask people to kind of go back through the recording when it's live on YouTube. Positive reinforcement, touching with treats, the timing of that. But there is a question about cutting dogs' black nails without cutting too deep. How do people know what to do if they have a dog that's fine with it and they've trained and they've done all that work? How do they know where to cut?
So black nails can be a bit more challenging. Usually what I recommend is, a lot of people don't realize they can do this, but you can use the nail clippers to just sliver a little bit off at a time. And what you want to look for is, if you're looking straight at the nail, you can see a little dot in the middle. It can be black, pink, or white. And once you start seeing that dot, that's time to stop. So don't go.
Awesome. And a lot of times the dogs will tell you that you're getting closer. They'll be like, wait, I'm starting to feel something. So that's good. So, and then we got a couple other questions here. Oh, sorry, Jessica, did you want to show your beautiful model?
Yeah. And also, a lot of times people don't realize that this blood vessel grows with the nail. So if the nail is way out here, the blood vessel might be just right under that. So if you get your dog back and you say, well, it looks like they didn't take the nail short enough. Well, there's a good chance that we can't, so without cutting the dog and causing a bleeding issue. So at that point, we might have to work together here and have you come back every 2 weeks in order for us to trim down the nails further. Because what can happen is, the nail to go shorter, the blood vessel will start to retreat back up the nail, and we can get them shorter and shorter each time. So it's not that we don't want to do the nails shorter, it's that we can't.
Okay, we have 2 more questions and then I'm gonna call it, because this has been so excellent. Can you talk to different types of products, like shampoos that you might use for different skin or different coat types, and what just types of products that people should use at home?
Sure. Not all brands are created equal. I don't want to mention any brand specifically, but you kind of have to look at your dog's skin and coat and try to select something based on what you're observing. So if you have a white dog, a brightening shampoo might be a good option if you just want to, help the coat stay whiter and cleaner looking. If your dog has any sort of skin sensitivity issues, you would probably want to go for an oatmeal shampoo that's very gentle or mild, or a hypoallergenic shampoo. If you're dealing with a skin condition, then you might need to pick up something from the vet that's a medicated shampoo. A lot of those shampoos work by putting a film layer over the skin to help protect it, or for antiseptic purposes to help keep it clean and bacteria free. So there's a lot of different shampoos out there, but I would say if you're not sure what to use, then a good oatmeal is a safe way to go. And also a conditioner would be a good idea as well. For dogs that have more voluminous coats, like poodles, you would want to use a lighter conditioner that's not heavy, because then it'll weigh down the coat and make it look greasy. But if you have a thicker coated dog, like your huskies, your shepherds, even your short-haired dogs, you could use a heavier conditioner, and it'll help keep the skin nice and conditioned and keep that fur from feeling really coarse. It'll actually help it soften. But if you're not sure, we always have a lot of shampoos here that we can discuss what's best for your pet. We have our generic oatmeal shampoo, but then we also have spa line as well. And our spa line is amazing quality. It's made with like royal jelly and primrose oil and like all kinds of nice stuff. So you can get pretty fancy with your shampoos. Just depends on what your situation is with your dog at home.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. And, we have a few more questions that we put your contact information, westcoastgroomingacademy.com, the website, in the chat. There were some people that asked some very specific questions for their particular animal. I would really advise you to reach out to Jessica and her team and get advice from them. Specifically about how to handle, an older cat with mats, a husky, how often they should be groomed, those kinds of things, because I think it's going to be a longer conversation for your specific animal. You can also email us at communications@annenbergpetspace.org if there's a question you'd like to get answered over email. So I really want to thank you, Jessica, and Katie for that great information. It was really, really just chock full of good stuff. This probably could have been 3 presentations. Thank you so much. So before I wrap things up, I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you to some of our upcoming events. As Katie mentioned, we have a special manners workshop at PetSpace on February 21st. Nail trimming, toothbrushing, space is limited, so please register soon. We'll be working with pet parents on all these different kinds of handling skills. And something I'm really excited about is our next Animal Matters online session will be held February 18th at 6:30 p.m. We have the renowned Dr. Kate Hurley from UC Davis. She's an amazing shelter veterinarian from UC Davis. She's going to be discussing the relationship between community cats and the wild bird population and how to find a balance to support both. It's a really excellent talk that you're not going to want to miss. Both of these registration links can be found at our website, www.annenbergpetspace.org. Thank you again to Jessica for taking the time to share all of this great information with us. And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us this afternoon and continuing to support Wallace Annenberg Pet Space. Please stay safe and be well. And thank you. And we hope to see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Katie.